1st of April 2025, John Hammond coming to you from early afternoon now, just about lunchtime, just after lunchtime. Technically, I'm in the car park of the supermarket waiting for my wife to come with the shopping. Trevor and I got into the city eventually. We have a complicated life sometimes, mundane things to do, but various points of call where we have been sowing the seeds sometime for many years. And if you understand the ways of God, all things work together for good for those in Christ Jesus, called according to his purpose. So even what appears to be negative situations we go through, and nobody wants them, once you come through them, you start to see the purpose. And of course, with spiritual warfare, anything or anyone opposed to the preaching of the gospel, anything or anyone is not from God himself. Therefore, it must be from the enemy, unwittingly or wittingly. Anyone or anything preventing us from preaching the gospel. Well, of course, the spirit of this age acts against Christ, the Antichrist, the false prophet, false teachers, the earthly authorities, laws of this country, rules and regulations, anti-phobia laws, that sort of thing, laws that say we can't stand near certain places. There are injunctions on us, I'd say us in Christ, commonly known as Christians, even silent prayer at certain establishments of the world where we are silently protesting. I mean silently, even standing on your own in a forbidden zone outside the abortion clinics. Even that now is against the law in certain places around the country. Even standing there, not giving leaflets out, but just standing there looking at the building, that is now in certain places in the UK illegal, wrong. Well, how do they know what you're thinking? Well, why would anybody be standing there looking at an abortion clinic without being a, quote, customer, without having purpose of being in the vicinity? Now, this has been happening for a while, and there'll come a point eventually that the government will want to earmark zones which are, let's call it, preacher-free. But currently in the UK, we can preach the gospel on the streets, which was what's happening today in the city centre. Outside one of the cafes, the Pret-a-Manger area, on Gentleman's Walk, a group gather, and two of the mature brothers in Christ audibly preach the truth, the gospel. And there are leaflets to be given out, and various people there giving out leaflets. And that is relatively a unique group in the city of Norwich, where they're not recruiting people for their local church, as far as I know. The ones that I know are not leading people to come to church to, quote, be saved. The whole idea is you're coming to Christ, or you're being recruited to be an audience member, a voluntary staff member, a paid staff member, that they're recruiting people to join a church brand. As much as any franchise, any cafeteria, any concert hall have people on the streets handing out invitations to come to a free concert. And the purpose, of course, it is free tickets to come to a concert, to a show, and the idea is they are attracting you to, quote, come to church. And when I say church, I mean a concert, a theatre, and or a cafe, and or a social club with a Christian element. And this is very much like has progressed over the last 20, 30 years, drop-ins, where people can drop in for a, quotes, free meal, quotes, for a donation. Well, actually, that's the price of the meal. Whether you call it a donation or not, it's the price of the meal of what, £1 or £2 or whatever it is. Or even if a donation for a penny, you're putting a price on the gift, which makes it not free. Now, anybody involved with advertising and marketing will know that free gifts have a catch, have a hook. Any cafe offering free samples outside the cafe, there's a hook, because they want your custom. They want you to come into their cafe having tried the sample. You come in and order a mug off the same thing. And it can be coffees, teas, whatever, frappuccinos, in winter, free ice creams. They give you a little tiny cone with the free ice cream for the kiddies. Of course, they want the big ice cream. And the kids have a way of persuading the parents. It's called stamping their feet, throwing a tantrum, making a noise in the streets, and everybody thinks, what terrible parents. Look at those kids shouting their heads off. Well, if you give in to a child who's shouting, manipulating you with a noise, then the child learns that trick works, and that becomes the pattern. The threat of screaming and shouting and stamping their feet, or throwing themselves on the ground and writhing around until the child gets its own way. Manipulation. So back to what was happening today outside the cafe, Pret-a-Manger, every Tuesday between noon and 2, usually there's some proper gospel preaching audibly, and some people handing out leaflets. Information. The leaflets usually contain the sinner's prayer, and there are conversations to be had with people. And Trevor and I have been going around the city for 20 odd years or more, and so we know the faces on the street by sight, and we know many of the, quotes, Christian faces. Today we sat at the table outside Pret-a-Manger. We prayed, Lord, bring people to this table. We put a spare seat there who want deliverance. And 2 people came to the table. Now I'll pick that up in the next video. My wife is coming. God bless you, obedient servants of God. God bless.